Hey, caregivers and warriors. Today we're going to talk about the Glasgow Coma Scale. So, what is the Glasgow Coma Scale? The Glasgow Coma Scale is a scoring system used by in many emergency rooms, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, etc., to determine the level of consciousness for somebody after a severe trauma or traumatic brain injury. And so this scale measures three things: eye opening, verbal response, and motor response. The lowest score you can get is not tested, but in general, the lowest score you can get is a 3, which means you did not respond to any one of those. The highest score, or the best score that you can get, is a 15 if you max out that you're opening your eyes, you're responding to verbal commands, and you have all the motor movement that you need. This will obviously vary depending on whether somebody has drug or alcohol use at the time, that sort of thing. In our instance, Danielle did not have any drug or alcohol use. She was in an accident, and her initial Glasgow Coma Scale rating was a 3, which means she did not respond to motor, she did not have any verbal, and she did not have any eye movement. So this scale, again, was kind of used to tell the doctors, like, where is she from a basic level? How bad is the injury? And I'm saying that this is a very early on gauge, right? And I'm not saying that this is a gauge that you need to look at to determine recovery, because as you can tell, and I'll bring Danielle on camera here in future videos, but you'll be able to see that just because somebody has a Glasgow Coma Scale of 3, it doesn't mean that they're not going to survive. Now, on the flip side of that, it also doesn't mean that if somebody's got a Glasgow Coma Scale of 12, 13, 15, that they don't have substantial injuries. All it is it's just a basic measurement for emergency room and emergency personnel to use to try and get a gauge. So as I mentioned, Danielle had a Glasgow Coma Scale of 3. This Glasgow Coma Scale of 3, again, meant she had no verbal eye movement response. Danielle happened to be in a coma for 2 weeks. She did not even open her eyes for about 14 or 15 days, somewhere around there. And so this whole time she was in a deep coma, on a ventilator, feeding tube, IVs, you name it. The next phase of this, which I want to go over in future videos because this was very confusing to me as well, but again, to kind of give some preliminary information to help those out that are watching these videos. Once she came out of the coma, there was also things like the minimally conscious state, the vegetative state, and there's other scoring mechanisms that doctors will use and practitioners will use to determine how far they are in their recovery as well. So there's a lot of different terminology. As I mentioned in my previous video, this is one of those scales that maybe you want to write down, keep in your notes, try and get a gauge of where they're at and how they're responding, but also to provide some hope that just because somebody has a Glasgow Coma Scale of 3, which is the minimum that you can be, it doesn't mean that that's it, right? As I mentioned, Danielle is recovering. She's not back to 100%, but she's a lot further along than what the doctors had given her credit for, who basically had told us that she was not going to survive at all. And she's still with us today, and living a fairly productive, happy life. So I just wanted to share some of this information with you. Hopefully give you some hope that just because somebody has a Glasgow Coma Scale of 3, that it's not the end of the world, but also to introduce you to the concept. I'm going to throw some links down below in the description as well to brainline.org, which will give you a little bit more information about the Glasgow Coma Scale, so that you can use it and research it and have the terminology available for you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Hope to see you next time, and God bless.